Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Hangin with Hobo. And today we're going to do something that might come in handy for a few of you. This particular design that I've got in the thumbnail about the horizontal Christmas tree, you may, it's cute, but I can't use that. But a lot of the designs that I show you and introduce you to, it's not about the design so much as it is about the techniques, how you create these pieces. Because I was asked this week, and I see Sharon's got a show she's getting ready to she's preparing to do, and I was asked this week about how to maximize your space, because a lot of times when you go to those shows, you got an 8 foot by 4 foot table, and that's all you've got. So you don't have a whole lot of flat area to work with. So what do? Well, you can go up. You can create more space, display space, by going up. And you're like, well, wait a minute. You showed us a Christmas tree. Yeah, I did. This is a Christmas tree that's in the thumbnail. It's created using horizontal layers of varying sizes. And when you look at it real close from the profile like that, well, now you start to see, all right, well, it's a pretty simple design, but how do you get the sizes you want? How do you figure out the spaces and all that? Do you need it so that if you were going to do it as a display piece, would you want the shelves or the support places to actually spin on the spindle, or do you need them locked in place? A lot of different things and techniques we're going to talk about to design something like this. And if you needed a multi-tiered display piece for going to a show, this is how you can do that. Now here, these are so close together and so small, of course, this can't be used for a display piece. But it's the techniques used to make this. And maybe you do just want to make a tree like this and not a display stand. But you've seen them like the cupcake stands and different things like that. Well, we're going to do the basic geometry and use a couple of the tools in Lightburn to help make this easy, quick, simple. So I do hope everyone's had a good week. It has been a very, very hectic week for me. Haven't gotten a whole lot done. Helped a few people, but haven't had anything productive done myself. But I guess it was productive to be able to help people that were having troubles that they were having. So that's a good thing too. So, today is November the 1st. Tomorrow, remember, fall back. For those who do the daylight savings time, change your fall back tomorrow. Let's see here. So let's get over here to Lightburn, not that one, that one. All right. So before I do, depending on the size of your laser, obviously, it's going to dictate how big of a stand you can make. If your laser work bed is only going to accommodate the 12 by 12 material, then that's as big as your lowest tier is going to be. And then what are you wanting to use the display for? Are you going to do the Christmas tree? And it's not going to be a display. It's just going to be something decorative. Then the more layers you put in there, like here, that looks really, that's almost as bad as Charlie Brown's Christmas tree. It's pretty bare when you look at it from that point of view. But had I put in double the number of layers, then that would have really filled out and it looked even more impressive. And I'm going to show you how you get all those sizes. Don't do that. I'll get broke. I'll put it up. How many layers do you need? What sizes? How do you know? Well, if this one is 58 millimeters across, how do I know 48 or How do you get your sizes? How do you get all the? Well, you don't have to think about anything. You don't have to measure anything. You use a simple tool in Lightburn. All right. I find that the IDC YouTube streams are really good. Yeah, I like watching Garrett. All right. I'm liking CIC too. Did I say that and I forget his name? Ryan, I think. All right. Make sure I don't miss it. If and I don't think there's anybody new here today, but if you've got any, if there's any new viewers that pop in, if you have questions or comments, precede your questions with a question mark, comments with the exclamation point. It says, hey, and that way those jump out and grab me, grab my attention so I don't miss those as the roll through the chat. And speaking of Garrett and IDC, I noticed what in him the other night, even Garrett said, I put a question mark in front of your comments. I'm like, okay. How many people are doing that now? Ryan, yeah. I like Ryan. He's fun to watch. All right. Okay. So if you've got a big machine, you can get bigger material in there, then you can create bigger projects. You can do actual cupcake stands that you can put a dozen cupcakes on the bottom tier, and then 10, and then 6, and then But if you've got a small one, and we're gonna, because the technique's going to be the same. It's just a matter of how big, how much scale you want to make it. So we're going to do on a 12 by 12 piece of material. And then anybody that's got bigger pieces, is this just a comment? No, that's a question. Oh, we got clowns in the house today. Wherever I comment on these days, I hear you. All right. So let's get over here to Lightburn. And first thing I want to do is I'm going to put me out my toolpath, my material. So we're going to start with the 300 by 300 material. So I'm going to draw a square and tell it to be 300 millimeters with aspect ratio locked, and we'll put it in a home position down here. All right. Now, if I want to do a piece that I'm in Sharon's shoes right now and I need to make something for a display stand, and I'm only can make it with the 12-inch material, and I want to have, say, one base layer that's going to be, it's almost that complete, well, almost 290 mil. And then I need about, I'll say 4 inches of space, and then another one. How many layers can I get? Well, if I'm going to have one central support that I've got to cut out of the same 12 millimeter material. Well, 12 inches or 300 millimeter material, and it's not going to be much bigger than that, right? So the base is going to be about as big as it is tall. The next one, so I'm that rate, I'm only going to get like 3 tiers, but that's 2 more than the flat surface of the table I was on. So if I come back over here and whatever your base shape wanted to be, if you wanted it to be a circle or come over here and you use the new star shape that's in here that I keep forgetting about, and draw out a perfect star, you can make a great big star the size of your base. But that's a whole lot of wasted space. You've got 5 points that you could put that on. I wouldn't want to do a star. But maybe I don't want it just to be a plain old circle. I'll do an octagon. So I'll start, and do they have octagon in there? Yeah, they do. I was getting ready to use the shape properties, but there's an octagon. So there's 8 sides. So I'm going to start in the middle. I'm going to draw the perfect octagon. And I get it about there. Is that close? I'm going to go to 295 mil. Put that on a cut path. All right. And if I put that in the center of that work material, that gives me a 5 millimeter buffer all the way around. So now I've got that. That's my base. Now, if I'm going to be coming up 4 inches and 4 inches for my layers, how much? And then actually I need to think, okay, well, what am I putting on my display? What am I going to put at the top? How big is it? How much space does it require? So how big does that top piece need to be? Before I start worrying a whole lot about that, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to get, nope, wrong one, this one. Get a rectangle. And there we go, rectangle. And I'm just going to make it 300 millimeters tall right now, or say 295 actually as well. Say 295 mil. And right now, I'll do 20 mil. All right, so if that's going to be the size of my center column, I'm going to bring it over here. And I'm going to put the base right on the very bottom. And I know it is going to be 295 millimeters wide, and it's going to be 3 millimeters thick. And then I'm going to say go to center bottom. And there's where that would be placed. And if I'm going to have 3 of these, and I want it to go up this, I don't know. Let's see here. Laser tools. I always forget. Yeah, okay. Copy it along path. There we go. I always forget which menu it's in. That was in the arrange menu. Is that right? Tools, arrange, copy along path. So before I do that, I selected the bottom one, select the center post, arrange menu, copy along path, and I need a number of copies. I don't need 4. I need 3, and space between them. If you I want to scale the copies too, and I'm brain freeze, and I'm not even drinking anything cold. Number of copies, 3. Don't need to rotate them. I do want to scale them, and I don't have to worry about the variable text. I'm not doing that. Scale copies. All right, how big do I want to scale them? Here, if I want my top piece up here to be 50%, come on, what is this doing? Number of copies, 3. All right, cancel this. Let me see. Let me try putting a straight line on here instead of that column, because this is not wanting to do what I want it to do right now. So I come here, draw a straight line up. Use that as just recognize it as a tool path. I want that copied along that tool path, arrange, copy along path. And here's another one of those screens, Chris, that's locked. I can't scroll in and out. So you have to be where you want it to be, then go to arrange, copy along path. There we go. There's 4. I want 3. I don't know why it was doing that. I guess it didn't It didn't recognize that rectangle as a path, so it had to be that line. So there, we both learned something new. So I used that line as a toolpath. I want 3 copies, and I want it to be scaled, and I want the top copy at 50%. There we go. I can actually go more than that. We'll go to 30, go to 20. But here, they should be equal distance apart from each other. And you can actually start to visualize what your size of your shelves are going to look like and how much overhang one's going to have over the other. Now, when I'm scaling these, it's also scaling it from the 3 millimeters, also scaling the width of it here. Shapes created from shape menu are primitives, not paths. Thank you. I knew that, but I always forget it. And now that we've got all of the new additional shapes in there, that's even more than, oh yeah, I need to convert that to a path. Lots of things are good. Lots of things but you just got to keep them all in your Rolodex and be able to access them when you need them. And only the group watching this right now probably can recall what a Rolodex is. If you go ask any of your folks in the house other than your husband and their wife, hey, can you go get me a Rolodex? They go, what? A Rolodex? What's a Rolodex? Swap. So I drew a line down the center for the path because this is a shape and not a path. So copy along path, it has to be a path, not a shape. But here you get the chance to start to visualize. And that's why I said a minute ago, you didn't need to worry about what size your pieces are going to be because you're going to let this determine what it's going to be. If you got to looking at it, you say, you know what? I don't need all that space in there. Let's do 4 shelves. Well, it's going to do 4 shelves and all of them automatically get, incrementally changed. And let's take it on down. And you say, what? You know what? I'll do 5. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to do that. I'll do 5 layers. Let's see how much space I've got in there. Am I going to have enough room? And say, okay. And then you can use your measuring tool to come in here, go on the bottom of that one and go to the top of that one. You can see that's 97 mil, not quite 4 inches between that shelf and the next one. And let's look at the very top. There to there. There's 2 inches, give or take. 2.5. So they're not equally spaced apart. Now, if you did want them equally spaced apart, check this out. But let's see. A Rolodex was close to the first desktop. Is the spacing scaling also? Spacing did not go equal distance, but check this. If you wanted it to be equal distance, this is how you do it. When you've scaled it, you set your limits for the top and the bottom by selecting that line. So it's going to copy along that path from top to bottom. But there is a greater distance between this one than there is this one. But if you want to fix that, you want that number of copies. So now you say, okay, all you got to do is select every one of those. I'm going to deselect these that are vertical. And then I'm going to tell it to distribute horizontal or vertically with even spaces between them. And this description, this tool took me probably 2 years to wrap my head around what these images are actually displaying. And I'm going to show you how I finally came to interpret the images. So this image right here is distribute the objects vertically with even spaces between them. That's the second one of these 4 distribution tools. And if you watch these shelves, when I click on that one, it now distributes those evenly with all the spaces equal between them. The bottom and the top don't move. It just puts all of these perfectly spaced out. And if you look, if we recreate this image, let's see. All right, so that image is what this up here, the distribute vertically with spaces between them. Well, that's a piece, and that's a piece. And this is what bothered me. To me, it's the lines are what confused me. The horizontal lines made me want to think, okay, well, this is a horizontal distribution, but it's not. You're distributing the pieces away from each other with spaces in between those 2 smaller blocks. So you're moving them, this one and this one, away from each other with spaces between them. The other one up here puts these 2 like so, and these like so. And it's still going to move them vertically away from each other, but from their centers of each other, instead of with even spaces between them, from the center pieces. Now, where that becomes a little bit of an issue is if this piece was larger than that piece, well, it's going to be distributed. And I've had another piece up here that was a little bit smaller. It's going from the centers of those images, and one of them may appear closer to the other because it's much larger than the other, because it's based on where their centers are located. But if you use this one, it's going to have, regardless how big they are in relation to one another, it'll be spaced evenly with space between them. And this, with the horizontal, with the horizontal lines are your vertical spacing. There's 2 more over there with the vertical lines, and they're your horizontal spacing. So the images play tricks with my brain. Maybe it's because of my simple brain, but the vertical ones with the lines like that, that's going to distribute them with equal spaces between the objects. Then the other one has the line in the middle. That's going to distribute them based on their centers and move them horizontally away from one another based on their centers. I've got the yay, good. Did it? I'm hoping you found another solution other than that. It actually had to be the new PC. Oh, and tonight I've actually asking for help. I've run into an issue with the post processor in MillMage not allowing me to do what I want to do. So hopefully between Chris and Jack, we might be able to figure something out. If we can get it figured out, I'm going to do some live carving tonight. But right now, it won't let me work. So hopefully, Ed, you got your problem straightened out, and it wasn't just was less than having to buy the whole new PC. All right, so that takes care of explaining those distribution tools. And those tools, if I grab them, those four are highlighted there, but if you go into the arrange tools and the distribute, there they are again. Distribute horizontally spaced, horizontally centered, vertical spaced, vertical centered. And if you don't see these, I don't know, see Windows, arrange, long, turned off, Windows, arrange. Yeah, so you don't see those if you have your window. If you go into the window menu and you only have arrange turned on, you do not see the distribute tools. So if you were going, well, I don't even have those, turn that off, uncheck the arrange, go back to Windows and check arrange long, and that'll turn on the add the distribute tools. That's not my choice, Carl. I've got to. I can afford to buy one drink, and the other half of the household would prefer this, and so we got these. So, all right, back to designing our shelf. Squirrel. But this and this, guys, I hope that you appreciate that I don't come on here and want to show you, hey, look at me, see what I can do. Maybe you can too. I would rather give you the tools to show you how to do what you want to do with your equipment, and not just copy and emulate what you see the other monkey do. You know, monkey see, monkey do. No, I want to teach you how to do this. And that's why I said I'm not actually showing you how to make and recreate this piece, but anything like it. And, you know, I would rather actually teach you than show off. All right, so we go back over here, and this is what we decided on, and this is going to be the number of pieces or shelves we're going to make, and this is going to be the ideal spacing. We can come here and look to see, is that going to work? And okay, that's almost 3 inches per shelf. I can live with that. Well, now, since we started down here and we told it to be 295 millimeters, and it's 3 millimeters thick, now I can just go up here and measure this. This one's going to be 242.5 millimeters. Obviously, it's going to be 3. So my next shelf, if I duplicate this, Control D, duplicate it, there's my bottom. Then I got to come over here. And now, for depending on your shape, if you use a circle or a square, it's irrelevant. Because a circle or a square, it's going to be your diameter or cross section, your width is going to be the same with a circle or a square. But with some of your hexagons and pentagons and octagons, you can have irregular widths. So you want to make sure you're keeping them, as long as you keep them all the same when you're doing your design, you shouldn't be an issue. So this one was 295. The next one, 242.49. So lock your aspect ratio, and we're going to do the width at 242.49. And looks like the octagon is also like your square. The octagon won't be a problem. A pentagon, I'm pretty sure, is a problem. So I've got my anchor point in the wrong place. And if you haven't heard me talk about the anchor points, we'll mention those briefly too. These buttons up here, they have no definition anywhere unless Lightburn has updated it since I've started calling these the anchor points. They're not mentioned in the Lightburn documentation anywhere. They don't have a definition, no name, no nothing. And I gave them the name anchor point because to me, it's just like and I lived on a boat for 10 years. So that's how I started to put this tool, envision how it works. When you're on a boat, a large boat, you drop your anchor off the bow of the boat. Then the current is going to push your boat around that anchor point. The anchor don't move. The anchor is anchored. Your boat or your image is going to pivot around the anchor point. So wherever you drop anchor, that's stationary. So when I resized this just now, because I have my anchor point up here on the top or on the middle right, it drew that up and over to the right. And let's see here. My pantry has slowly changed to my mother's brands of yes. I appreciate you and learn from watching you. Hence why I appreciate you. I do appreciate you. And you continue to follow. Yes. Think of a bolt head. It's wider from point to point and narrower from flat to flat on polygons and hexagons. Yeah, but not all polygons are created equal. Because here, the height and width is the same, but that's not true for a hexagon. I mean, it's a hexagon. Yeah, some of the, and I think they're all polygons, right? Anything with multiple sides is considered a polygon, but then octagon's 8, hexagon, pentagon's 5, decagon, 10. They got different names for them. But the pentagon, that's what I meant. The pentagon if you try to use a pentagon, it will mess you up. Lightburn has adopted your anchor point. I love it whenever I can be influential in a good way. And who knew? So that's the anchor point. It's going to keep that in place. And if I had, and I should have had my anchor point in the middle. So I'm going to Control Z and go back. Come on, Control Z. There we go. So now I put my anchor point in the middle, and that was 242.49. Is that right? 242.49. Now here's something, Chris. Get your notebook out, Chris, and write this down and take it to, because I will use Lightburn's forum to communicate issues when I absolutely have to, but I hate it. I hate that forum with a passion. It is the most aggravating thing to use. I have the hardest time trying to get stuff uploaded, especially when they start by, well, I need a video, I need this, I need that. None of the stuff never won't work. And then the way they respond and the replies, they come back. I hate it. I hate it. But in the calculator that I created for the other tool from IlmAge, I got just a simple copy button, just a copy. It would be cool if, like right now, I select this image that tells me that it's 242.49 millimeters wide. Well, if I want it to be exact, down to that 100th of a millimeter, then this stroke-riddled, age-old, whiskey-saturated, soggy brain, it ain't had it in a while, but it did its damage. To remember all those 5 digits and then go back over here, sometimes I'm back and forth. What did it say? What was that? What was that? What was that? If there was a way that when I have this selected, I select this width and say, okay, well, that's what I want. And instead of having to come up here, highlight it, copy, then come back over here, do that, select that, and then come in here and then right click and then paste and then enter, if there was just a shortcut key or just a button, a copy button, you just say copy, paste, copy, paste. Because I don't know about any of you other guys that are doing any of your own design work. How often are you having to try and remember values from one piece to the next because it's reliant? You need to be able to do that. So be able to just a simple. Right now, I think where they give you the option where you just click on the millimeters and it will highlight the whole screen. It's now selected. But if there was a way, just a quick shortcut key, and that, hey, you know what? We can create our own shortcut keys, right? But I'd rather have a button that you can just click, copy, click, copy. So Chris, get busy on that. All right. So I put my anchor point in the middle, and I've reduced that one to the 242.49. So there's my next shelf. So now I'm going to Control D, duplicate it, bring that one over here. Then I've got this one, and it's 189.98. Anchor point still in the middle, aspect ratio locked, 189.98. Duplicate that, set that off to the side. Oh, I didn't mean to grab both of them. Control Z. Thought I said duplicate, but it's not duplicated. Control D, duplicate. There we go. Set the duplicate to the side. That's because it's a Discord, not the good old forums. I hate it. I hate it. A polygon is a dead parrot. Yep. All right. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Come up here to the next one. 137.47. 137.47. Control D, duplicate it. Now you start to see there's a whole lot of wasted space around these, but that's fine. We're going to deal with that in a minute. Then the last one is 84.96. 84.96. Now you've got all your shelf sizes. You don't need this anymore because this was just something you created so you can visualize what it's going to look like. And by doing that scaling from, and I said a minute ago, we're going to scale it by 50%. I read the instructions on it once and I forgot. I thought it was, you're scaling it from one to the very top. It would be the total difference from the bottom one to the top one. But that ain't how it works. Start saying you're reducing each one by the next. In fact, we don't need to go there now because it's kind of irrelevant. When I use that tool, I just go what visually looks good. But I think it might be reducing. If you got one starting out at 100, and then you'd say reduce by 20%. Well, the next one's 80, and the next one's 20% less than 80, and then the next one's 20% less than that, or something like that. But and I think that also is why they don't always get spaced equal distances between them. But you do what visually looks good to create the shape of the pyramid that you're looking for. And if you wanted to do a tree like this, but you wanted to have a whole lot more layers, well, that's all you do. You just keep creating the number of layers you want to help fill in all those large voids if you wanted to do a tree. But if you want to do a display shelf, then, something like this is totally useless. But you don't want to break it. Why not do an offset inward? Because you don't know what to offset it to. Hi, somebody blowing at me. You could do an offset, but to what measurement? The reason you did the copy along path and scale the design was to be able to get a nice uniform tapered, triangular shape. And that's what determined what the lengths of those pieces are. And when you're doing an offset, you've started at say the 300, offset it into what would equal the 289.89, you know? So you could do an offset, but if you're being very, very specific about your design and you're creating it within, with intent and not with what will it look like when I get put together. I want it to look exactly like this. So I'm using the distribute tools and the scaling to get a very symmetrical finished piece and know exactly where they need to be spaced apart at. Yeah, control, yep, copy, paste, control V. And so there's some keyboard shortcuts there. Those linked at each, hey, I don't follow you there. Yeah, you could, the offset would determine what your length is, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to look good or give you. I like having the visual. To me, it's more about the visualization of seeing what this is going to look like. If I didn't have this, and I just come in here and said, okay, I'm going to take this, and I need to create offsets, and I need to create outward offsets, and it needs to be. I want to have a 2-inch space out here, and what so say 50 mil. So okay, well, I need it to be corners. All right, there's 50 mil on that one. Say okay. And then I can just hold Control D or hold Control and click on the offset. There's my next one. But then say I got 1, 2, 3 tiers, but here I've got 4. So 50 won't work. So Control Z, take that back. Let's do 35 millimeters offset. 35. Say okay, and hold my control button and click. Okay, there you go. That worked. So, and in fact, there it goes. There's 295 mil. Or if you started at the outside and worked your way in with a very specific, then you could get that. But it's like, okay, well, fine. Now I've got 4 tiers. They're all evenly spaced. That works. But then what is my spacing going to be for each of the tiers if I want to keep it limited to 12 inches or 10 inches. You want to do each offset different? You could, but then that's going to change the symmetry of your piece over here. If you did a different offset, if there I did all 35, and then once it's spaced out, I would have a pyramid shape like that. If I did 30 and then 40 and then 45, it's not necessarily going to look the same. But you know what? This ain't about doing it Hobo's way. I'm just showing you one way, or 2 ways, or 3 ways. I may show you a couple different ways to achieve the same thing in different techniques. There ain't no right way or wrong way. And anybody ever takes an attitude telling you you're doing it the wrong way or this is not how you should do it, they too full of themselves. Use the offset from your distribution you made. Yeah, I ain't wrapping my head around that. But like I said, if you got it and you understand it and it works, that's all that matters. And I am going to be the first one to admit I see it and I live it. Analytical people think differently than creative people. And we have both people in this laserologist world. In the Hobo Nation, you've got very analytical engineering type minds, and you have people who just see it and create it, and they don't put a whole lot of and I'm a little bit of a hybrid of both, but I think I'm a little bit more creative than I am analytical. But the way that this brain perceives it, this brain may or may not notice it or recognize it at all, but can come up with a completely different way to get there that still works that this guy never saw. There is a big difference in right brain and left brain people. A big difference. I don't recalculate when Lightburn has that recalculate built in. I don't follow you there either right now. All right. So let's move on. We've designed our shelves, or we figured out our shelf size. If we want it to have this profile, now I don't need all of this right here. Go bye. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right. Now, oh, that was for Steve S. Okay. If you're doing this for a display piece, now the next thing you need to ask yourself is, do you want those? How heavy is this piece going to be? How much material is going to be on it? Is it going to be stable enough so that you can have rotating shelves? Right now, these, if I grab this base and hold this as firm as I can, that ain't moving. That's locked. Those will not spin. And that's done because I've got every other one rotated. So I've got, point here, gap here, point here, gap here. So it gives it a fuller look as you look down that shape of these cone or these snowflakes. If you're doing round pieces or pentagons or whatever, in fact, if you're doing with the octagons, if you wanted to have your shelves line up so that this was the next shelf, and you said, you know what, I want to have it rotated like that. I want to have the points of this one in the middle of that one, or vice. And that's actually not in the middle. That's off just a wee bit. So if you wanted to have that exactly in the very center, you'd have to do a little bit of tweaking. I was trying to use the shortcut keys to get it there, but right, that's close enough for right now. But if you wanted to have the shelves look like that, so that every other tier you had, this next one would be straight across there, and you wanted them to stay that way, then you're going to have your center post designed in a way that those are fixed in position. And depending on what material you make these out of, if you make it out of your 3mm Baltic birch, then you probably don't want them spinning anyway, because it's going to be pretty lightweight. And then they try to spin it, and the next thing you know, they topple the whole thing over. I'll let you do the design, so I guess that makes me a no-brainer. All right. So if you don't want the shelves spinning, they have to be locked in place. And you do that when you design that center support. And that's an easy thing to do. You just simply create two interlocking pieces that form, across, that has that cut out of your center part of your shelves, and you just slide it down on there. Now they're locked. They ain't going anywhere. And you can orient those so that they are all uniform, or every other one is turned. But if you do want them to spin, if you're going to make it out of some pretty heavy duty stuff, you've got a bigger laser and you want them to be able to rotate those, well, then you just cut a hole in it, and then they can spin. You still have that same center support, but now they can just spin. They're not locked in place. All right, so back over here. So if this was my centerpiece, my center post, and I need to be able to have across to that, and I'm going to say duplicate that. Pull that. Actually, you know what? Before I even do that, I'm going to go ahead and get my center slot in there. So if I'm making this out of 3mm material and I need to have this interlocking, do a half lap cross for the trunk and cut across and center. I think that's what I'm getting ready to do. I don't really know what you mean by half lap cross. Might be what I'm getting ready to talk about, I think. But there's my center bar. And I did 20mm wide and 295mm tall. I'm making it. I'm gonna design it based on 3mm material. So actually, you know what? I can just take that, duplicate it, and tell it to be 3mm. Unlock my aspect ratio, and the width is 3mm, not 33. There we go. And by having my anchor point in the middle, it pulled it in from each side, and now that's perfectly centered up in there. And I don't need it to be that tall. I need it to be half of that. So all I got to do is come back over here to the height and say divide by 2. But because I had my anchor point in the middle, it pulled it up from the top, or from the bottom and the top. And if I don't want to do that, I come back and change that anchor point, put it down there at the bottom and say divide by 2. And by having it in the bottom center, I'm still centered, and now it's at the very, very bottom. And now I can say A, subtract B, and use the subtraction tool, and that cut that out at the bottom. And now duplicate that, Control D, and rotate it. And there's those two. One's going to slide down over the top of the other, interlocking with each other. And once they're interlocked, you're going to have a 3mm, 20 by 3, and Control D, duplicate it and rotate it. So a top-down profile is going to look like that. So once you interlock those together, it's going to look like that. And that's going to be the size, 20mm by 3mm. And if we select both of those, do not weld these together when you're making your crosses to go in your shelves. Because if you weld these together, they're no longer going to be recognized by Lightburn as slots. And as I said, I'm designing this based on making it with 3mm material. How often does that ever happen? It's always 2.7 or 2.8 or maybe 3.1. So you need to be able to resize your slots. And the minute you weld those two pieces together into one piece, they're no longer a slot and they're no longer adjustable. But group them, and then for now, because when they're grouped, Lightburn won't recognize them either. So they have to be ungrouped and individual pieces to be able to be resized with the resize slots and selection tool. But right now I've got them grouped, and I'm going to say, and I don't need this over here right now. I'm going to delete that one, and I'm going to select that and Control D one time and bring it over here and put it right in the center. Get it, there we go. Duplicate it again and get it to snap in the center right there. Duplicate it again and just keep doing that. There. Control D. There. Control D. And there. So now I've got those support pieces lined up to where it'll go on there and sit. Now let's see. Questions come up here. Comments, questions. I just wish I could retain everything I learned or have learned. Brother. And I'm making an assumption when I say brother Led Zepp. I don't know if you're a man or a woman, because just because you're a Led Zeppelin fan doesn't mean you're a man. I know plenty of women who wear Led Zeppelin tank tops. I forget stuff. stuff that I've done videos and shown how to do, and I can't remember how to do it to save my life. I'll go back and watch my own videos. I have a photographic memory. Unfortunately, everything is out of focus. All right. So back over here. Now I've got these shelves, and I've got this center support. And do I even need that right there anymore? Probably not. I'm gonna delete that. I've got it over here if I do. But now I'm like, okay, well, if I put these on there, put these, interlock them, and it's going to fit into that base. Then I'm going to slide the next one on. Well, what's going to make that stay up there instead of pancaking down? Do, 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 do. Oh. They were right there forever, and I think I just put them away. Believe it or not, these are paper drinking straws. Absolutely useless as a straw. But they are BPA free, all kinds of free this, free that, but not fit for drinking anything. But it is a half-inch in diameter, I think is what it was. But you can get all kinds of different sizes of paper straws. And what I like about the paper straws is they're laser friendly. You can use PVC or pipe like that, anything like that. But I wouldn't cut that with your laser. Do not do that with your laser. Never cut PVC with your laser. But you could cut it with a hacksaw or something and paint it up. But these, you'll need to, if you're going to use the paper straws, keep that in mind when you're designing, because your diameter of your straw is going to limit the size of your center support. But drinking a milkshake through a paper straw, mm-mm. Yeah, all straws are now paper here. They banned the plastic ones. I'm sorry. I mean, I get it. I understand. And am I isn't most of the population of Australia? I mean, Australia is big, but isn't most of the population of the entire continent on the coastline? So if the majority of the population is on the coast, making it that easier for the majority of all your straws to end up in the ocean and sticking in a turtle's nose, I can see why you would want to get rid of them. But you can shoot some. That big old thing, you can probably shoot a 44 out of it. All right. So you use something like that. If you need it here, 20 millimeters is over a half inch. So that one particular straw wouldn't be big enough for this particular piece if you wanted to, cover that up. But I do that where I cut those to length, slide them down, then put my next shelf on. They support the shelf. Put the next one on, slide the next shelf down, it sits on it. And that's how these are put into place. This gold trunk that's in there is just a gold painted plastic straw or paper straw. And if you look close enough, there you should be able to see. Yeah, there you Get it. There we go. You can see the, well, the camera is always around backwards. But you can see, there we go. You can see the slots, the wood in there underneath the straws. But paper straws, PVC cut with hacksaw, because if you're going to do big, and it's also going, if it's going to be something that's going to be needed to support some weight, paper straws might not be the answer. It might need to be some PVC piping or something like that. But don't cut that with your laser. A suitable that size would put, yeah. A spit wad that size put your eye out. Yeah. I use stainless steel straws with PVC wash with a PVC washable top. Yeah, I figured that out, Ed. I figured that out. Yeah, cut it with an angle grinder. Angle grinder, if you get a nice, clean, smooth cut. But just don't use your laser. Couldn't you put grooves in the post? Yes, you could. Absolutely, you could. Let's see. Couldn't you put grooves in the post? And when you get the shelf to the groove to the height, just twist. Well, let's see. Wait a minute. I say you can. And I'm not envisioning what you're describing right now. Let me see if I can get there. What the twisting is going to do. Yeah, you gotta love spell check, Ed. Yeah, I'm not picturing what you're talking about there, David. But again, it goes back to what I was saying. There's always, I'm just showing you some basic techniques, and I love it. You know, I'm also not the guy who wants to show you how to do something and then challenge you when you do take it and do something different with it. That's not what I showed you. Actually, that's what Hobo with Wood Facebook group is all about. I would prefer that site was a place that you just went to ask for help with your design work and to show off. Show what you've done. Show how you've improved my creations, my designs. Show how what you've learned in these little tutorial sessions, how you took what you observed and implemented and make your own creation. I love seeing that. And I love seeing people just post, hey, did a show and this is what I had at the craft show. And I look at the table and there's half a dozen or more of the designs that I love seeing that. I'm not put off by anybody making the designs and selling stuff. And I don't need recognition for it. I just take good pride in seeing that people like the stuff. And I love hearing that, hey, man, they loved it and sold great, and I had an order for this or that. Great. So there's always another way, and yeah, can you make it better? Can it be improved on? And right now, I'm actually showing you just the most basic design application of this. Could if you're really good. And you've got some more woodworking technique and skills, you could actually set it up so that you had cuts in the center support, the trunk. And instead of sliding the pieces down, you slid them up. And there are certain cuts that you can make in woodworking that they're kind of tension. They're spring tension cuts. So you cut, they stick out a little bit, but as you slide up, you've got voids in there that allow those to squeeze into place, and that'll slide right on up and past it, and then those spring back out, and then it sits down. I don't know how strong that would be, but there's always another way. Always another way. And how you get those shelves in the position you want them to be, That might be something that you figure out and say, hey, this works for me and this is easier, or I like this or I like that. But now you ain't got to figure out all the math, and because Lightburn's tools will do that for you, and you're able to visualize it as you're putting it together. Let's see here. I have mini tables. Oh yes, and those things are absolutely perfect for stuff like this. And Vivor and a few of the other places I've got some of those. And at first when I looked at them, I'm like, what in the world are you going to use that for? I mean, and if you guys haven't seen them, they've got these little bitty miniature table saws. That the saw blade on it might not be 3 or 4 inches, and it's it's just a scaled down tabletop micro table saw, but it's perfect for cutting dowel rods or bamboo rods, or in this case, little pieces of PVC. Those are cool tools to have around. I don't have one. That would be really cool if I did. How about putting steps on the posts so each branch would sit on it? How about putting steps? Well, you got to be able to get each corresponding one past. If you're sliding it down, it's got to be able to go down. If you staggered the size of the slots, so that the very, very bottom one's going to be really, really big, so it's going to pass everything. And then the next one's a little bit smaller, so it's going to go down. It's going to get over the first 2, but then when it gets to that one, it's got to stop. That would work. Absolutely, that would work. That actually wouldn't be hard to do at all. That would work. The twist will keep the shelf from sliding down. Yeah, I have not figured out the twisting part. How you're going to twist anything if it's on an interlocking piece that's T-shaped, and if it's made to fit on there, how is any of that going to twist? I haven't envisioned it, but I ain't saying it won't work just because I can't see what you're talking about. I love the way you share your knowledge. I also love the crowd in here. We can have a laugh without people. Absolutely. If you take offense to anything, toughen up, Buttercup. Yeah, I met a gentleman next door here. I had to take Gigi out today, and there was a couple sitting on the bench, and I don't know them from Adam. Never met them before. And he was asking me how I trained my dog. And I was giving him, I said, well, you got to start young. And I started with, she was about 6 or 8 months old, and I trained her with a shock collar. And people were like, oh, God, don't shock. Can't believe you'd shock your dog. Yeah, I said, well, me either. So before I shocked anybody, I shocked myself repeatedly. I took that shock collar, and it had 10 power settings on it. And I grabbed that thing, and I went through every one of the power settings, shocking myself to know the severity of the shock. And once I knew, now I'm doing it. I know even on the highest level, I'm able to hold it. It's just no big deal. It's not a shock that hurts. It's a shock that startles you and scares the snot out of you. And so that's what I told him. I said, start with a shock collar. I said, but before you put it on your dog, and there's a couple, man and woman there, before you put it on your dog, she needs to take that collar and put it on you. And she just started laughing. I said, don't get comfortable, honey. I said, put that collar on him. I said, and you shock him so he can know what it's like. He can experience it. And it educates you and lets you know how much the shock is. And you're not really hurting your dog. I said, but fair is fair. When he's done, he gets to shock you. He gets to put that collar on you. It's fair play. And we laughed and cut up, and we got done, and we were talking about everything, even about male cheerleaders in the NFL. He asked me my opinion. I just told him. He told me, he said, man, I like you. He said, you don't hold nothing back. I said, I'm too old and too tired to hold anything back. If you don't like what I got to say, oh, well, I ain't got to be your friend. But, truth's truth. This is how I feel. And, my truth is my truth. So anyway, yeah, I, I don't. I will not banish anybody for an opinion, uh, and I will laugh at everybody for whatever their opinion is. Uh, when you get to the groove, twist the shelf so the V center. Yeah. uh, I, Now all I can see is Chubby Checker and the twist. I don't see anything about twisting anything with the way these things. And if you guys have, and this is what I'm talking about, you guys have envisioned something that I can't even put in my brain. Yeah, tapering works. Thank you. That even, you know what? Tapering. See, guys, tapering is the smartest thing of the suggestions so far. You don't even have to worry about getting anything with the pencils or anything else. You just do a taper. Your piece is going to slide down to a point and then come to a stop. It's not going to go any further. Genius, Chris. Chris gets the gold star for today. But that's just another way to do it. Well, hello, Brad. Brad says, hey, I can't stay here long. Oh yeah, and I seen your post. I think pretty sure I liked on that. All the different woodcut jack o' lanterns and stuff you had done. I love seeing that kind of stuff. And oh, wait a minute, what I just do? Go away. There it is. And Brad says it's been a slow 2 weeks for me, but here you go. Well, thank you, Brad. Again, man, it's not necessary. I appreciate you, but you know, that's not necessary. I would rather wait till you make that $1 million and then send me 100,000. Yeah, I'm kidding. I appreciate that. That is greatly appreciated. In fact, that'll pay for half of tonight's dinner. All right. So, all right, we've worked with how you use the copy along path tool to distribute your pieces. Then used the space with equal space between them. And then now let's look at Chris's suggestion, because the taper is a genius way to have those pieces. Well, they're going to slide down, but now, and here's something. How long we been here? We got a little bit more time. There's a couple of things about doing this as a shelf, a display shelf. Right now, in fact, you see that? Not necessarily the greatest shelf, because these have got a lot of, they're not tight. There's a lot of excessive kerf in here, so they're loose and they fit together real easy. So they wiggle wobble. That's not great for a shelf. So what I would do if I was going to actually do this and use it for a display shelf, I would put an exoskeleton around the exterior of it. And that wouldn't be hard to do. It's too much to do into this live stream, but I do want to show you an idea of how to implement that taper part. And then show you what I'm talking about the exoskeleton. It's really not that hard to do. Let's see here. Before I jump back over to Lightburn, I'm making a new sign later today. AI, the self-checkout of life. I do not use self-checkout. I refuse to use self-checkout. I will not go to a kiosk and order my food at McDonald's or Bojangles or any restaurant. I will stand at the counter until someone comes and takes my order. And when they huff and puff about but if every single person used that, do you realize you're not necessary? You're not needed. So I refuse to do that. I will wait. I don't care if I've got 3 items at the grocery store. I'll stand there and wait for them to open the cash register. I'm not going to use a self checkout. Oh, well, we'll get to that 100,000 just really slowly. All right. Okay. So let's get over here and look at how you implement this taper and then show you what I'm talking about with the exoskeleton to really make this a secure display shelf. So we're going to come back over here, and I'm going to start with what was it, 295? Yeah, we're going to start with a rectangle, and let's start it at we'll start it at the 20 millimeters original and the 295 original. All right, so that was the original piece. And if I take that and put it in center and align it to the bottom, there we go. Now, if I take this now, as Chris pointed out a minute ago, anything that we create using this create rectangle, the shapes tool up here, this shape is not a path. Shapes or primitives do not have nodes. Anything that's grouped, you're not going to see the nodes. So anything you want to see the nodes in has to be ungrouped, and it has to be a path. So that rectangle that I just created, I need to right click, convert to a path. Once I've converted to a path, I then can go to my nodes and see the 4 nodes that make that up. Now I can come down here at the bottom and select one, and I've got my move tool set. It should be at 10. Oh, it's at 12.7. We're going to put this at 10 millimeters. Say OK. Now, if I got that one selected and I arrow over one time, there's 10 millimeters. There's 20 millimeters. And let's then come over here and grab this one and go over 10, 20. All right. So there's a 20 millimeter. So it's 40 at the bottom. Is it? No, it's 60 at the bottom and 20 at the top. All right. Well, how do you know what size to make these so they slide to a certain point and stop? Well, that's why you and a minute ago we were talking about using the different offsets to create the different size shelves and stuff like that. Ain't nothing wrong with that. It works. But having this visualization, this aid right here, it's also going to help me create the exact slot sizes that I need for this to come down and stop exactly where I want it to, and have them recreate that exact same spacing without any guesswork whatsoever. And 3 Rusty Nail says taper, but cut flats in it at the area the shelves will sit. You could do that too. Let's see. And you could do that, but then you'd have to make sure that the second you got the bottom's going to snap on the bottom. Then that top, or the second tier from the bottom, it's got to slide all the way down past every one of the extra flats that are going to be there to support the other shelves. So that hole's got to be big enough to allow all those to pass down and on, and then stop when it gets to its designated stopping point. But you might could make all that work, but let's start simple first, and then look at what can be done about adding those extra pieces. You could use the same scaling as when creating the shelves branches. You can, but I've got I don't even need to do that. I don't need to. Because I've got them right here. if I've done everything and I'm finished with this, and this is where these need to line up, I could use, come on, you select your tool. There we go. I could use that one at right where it's at, or I could just duplicate that, because that is the size at its widest point of that taper that hole needs to be cut for. The slot needs to be cut for. So I could just simply come in here and I could, there's always another way. I could hold control and just shrink that in until I get, to right there. And there's actually what the slot size would be. But now I've got rid of the original piece. Or I could Control D, duplicate it, and then do the same thing, just shrink it down and come in here and get it right there where that corner's on that taper right there. And then say Control D, duplicate it, rotate it, and then I could select both of those and bring it over here. And that is what would snap. Let's group them. And that would snap in up there. And that would allow that to slide down that taper and stop at that height. If I was going to do this additional supports on the side of that taper, you could do that a couple different ways. I'm going to do the quickest way I can think of right now. If I draw out a square, and then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to grab the radius tool. Actually, no, yeah, do the radius tool and do a -10. And there. And why did I do -10? Because that was 11¼ millimeters. So I knew a 10 would work and still have a little beef on there. So, and then now I've got 11, the width of that is 11.267. I could duplicate, not that, duplicate it, Control D, duplicate that, bring it over here, mirror it, and then align it there, and then weld that. Actually, we'll group that and that, group it, and then weld it. And that would have a larger area for that to sit on. And you don't have to worry about that one having any additional space, because that's only got to come down to there and stop. But this one, actually, you know what? I don't know what I was worried about earlier, but before. I think you could do the same thing. Control Z, let's ungroup, there we go. Let's grab this, duplicate it, bring that up here, duplicate it, Now they're all grouped, so I'll need to ungroup them individually. Well, I don't need to. I could select them all. Park that one in there. Park this one there. In fact, let's just go ahead and ungroup those. Snap. 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 And if you haven't watched the video on the snapping cursors, you need to. It makes that. I'm not even having to get in real close. Just the snapping is awesome. And then weld those, because this doesn't change. All right, now let's see. And this has got to be okay. Now here's where you got. Let's turn Chris off here. All right, if this gap was this size right here, duplicate that, bring that over here, ungroup it. All right. That's how wide that's got to be as it comes down and slides down this post. This opening would have to be large enough to clear all of these. So it wouldn't necessarily be a tight fit right there. And if you did it this way, you wouldn't have to be as exact with the sizing here. You would just have to make sure that it's large enough to clear this gap from there to there. As long as it cleared that gap, then it would come on down here and sit on your supports. It wouldn't be tight here, but because it's a T-crossed intersection, these are interlocking, it's not going to move left or right because the crossing interlocking center section will keep it centered in the piece, won't it? Yeah. So that would work. Let's see. Taper, but cut flats in it. Oh yeah, we think that's we had that. See, you could use the same. Yeah, we got that. Couldn't you use the measure tool? Yes, absolutely. You sure can. Wouldn't the slots be wouldn't the slots and the shelves be too big? Well, we're pushing on 90 minutes, but I'm going to push this. We'll be done before. We'll be done in the next 15, 20 minutes. Because I want to show you how you can really make this. Because right now, even with having these extra supports underneath it, it's going to be more stable. But it's not, if you're actually going to make this a display stand, and not because, again, these techniques, you could just create a little piece of artwork like this and put in a whole bunch more pieces so it doesn't look as empty and as bare as it does here, but then really looks full when you're looking at it from any angle. And you can make it a little piece of artwork, a shelf sitter. But if you want an actual display piece, then it needs to have more structure to it. It needs to have more support to it. And I think you would benefit greatly from having what I'm going to refer to as an exoskeleton around the perimeter of it. And I'm going to show you that here in just two shakes. So if we grab, and does everybody that's watching understand? Okay, the original slot size that I had based on it, needing to fit from this corner of the taper, and as someone mentioned, I think it was John said, you can come over here with the measuring tool and just measure from that intersection point to the next intersection point. Okay, there it's 49.91 millimeters. That's how big it would be. But if we put the supports on it like this, it's actually going to need to be able to clear the width of the previous support. So it need to be 62.42 millimeters to slide down and over and past that. And I would actually make it like 63 or 64, so you're not having to fight it to get it down. And you would need to make sure that your 63 or 64 is going to be smaller than there. So there you've got 10 millimeters to play with. And if you wanted to make super sure, you could just make those just a little bit bigger. But if you make those bigger and you make those bigger, then you got to make that slot bigger. So anyway, I think I've gotten it almost as muddy as a pond that a three-year-old's been jumping in, but hopefully you're still with me. So let's get rid of that for a second, and let's grab those two. They are grouped, and let's now weld that. Grab those two, group them, and weld it. Group them, weld it, and the last ones, group them and weld it. All right, so there's tier with some support with the taper to it. Now, if you wanted to, and like I said, to make sure that you're going to have this one be able to slide down over all of these, it just has to have slots in it that are as large or just slightly larger than the distance from that corner to that corner. So 62 point. So if I said 63 and a half, then a slot that was 63 and a half by 3 mil would slide over those down to the center and the bottom of that. And so there, and this is not at 3 mil. So anchor point in the middle, there we go, and say 3 mil there. So now you can see I got plenty of support that's hanging out and supporting that. But to give this thing plenty of support, and you do that all the way up, same thing. But if you wanted to give this some real support, and I would, if you're going to do a display that's going to be having pieces on here that you consider valuable and you don't want people toppling over, I would put an exoskeleton on here. And to do that, I would do, and this can be as abstract and creative as you want it to be, or as simplistic as you want it to be. If you wanted to get really nuts with it, you might could even, in fact, I got my Christmas trees already open. Let's grab this one. And I'm going to make this Christmas tree a little bit bigger. A bit bigger yet. All right. And I'm actually not really hating that position. Let's, this is, the star is not grouped on this one. So let's ungroup that, or it's not welded. Let's ungroup it and get it out of the way for right now. I'm going to do an offset of this inward. There we go. Let's do, let's do 25 mil, just about an inch, and say okay. All right, now I want to take and I'll grab both of these, bring that over here, and ungroup that all. Ungroup. There we go. Let's get rid of that little piece down there. Don't need that. Didn't mean to delete it. Get rid of that. Now I want to draw a straight line. I'm going to use that as my cutting tool or my bisecting tool. I'm going to take that, put it in the very center. And I didn't want to move that inner piece. Control Z. There we go. Let's temporarily group that so it stays in place. Then center that up. There we go. Put that on the same cut layer. Put it on the black layer for right now. And I also need, in fact, I'll just drag a toolpath down. I need one, and I'm gonna put it. I'll put it right about there, I think. No, right about there, and put it on the same layer. All right. Now, get my scissors out. Let's go to cutting. I'm gonna cut. I got that grouped. Yeah, I grouped it so I could keep it in places. Ungroup it. Now go to cutting. Everything below that line. There we go. And there. All right, and up here. And actually, you know what? I'm going to get rid of this over here too. And we'll get rid of that and that. And the rest of that's already done. So now I can select all that and get rid of it. So now I've just created an inward offset and bisected half of that profile. And I don't need that, get rid of it. If I take that and bring it over here, I can start to put slots in this so it can interlock on the perimeter of this and serve as supports and do it in either 3 locations or 4 locations. And that way it's going to have the side supports. They're going to help. You'd put these on last. You slide everything together, then you put these on. And then if you wanted to take and you may have to do some twisting. And so like here, I don't have, these aren't quite big enough. That's fine. That's what your node editing's for. Go in your node editing and come down here and grab all of those right there and hit the letter D to delete them. And that gives you more space. And if you want to give a little curve on it, fine, put a little curve in there. And that looks good. That looks good. That one, I need probably to move this over about like that, because I don't want this to be weak. I'm going to put it about in the middle for those two. Then I can always change the ones that are not long enough with my nodes. Just grab this handle and bend that in here like so. And if you could have that cut off there and flat, or you actually use this to help create additional feet. So your bottom shelf is not actually on the table itself. These are going to serve as your side supports and the feet. And to create the necessary slots for that to fit in, and up here we need to modify that one. So go back into node editing again and just grab some nodes and pull them in. You're not going to break anything. And I don't have all these at 3 millimeter, but if they were all 3 millimeter, you could do, you could just take and use your rectangle tool to start in the corner and draw it over and then create a rectangle that's going to fit in there. And that's going to be your slot. Or tons of ways you can create the slots for this. But that wasn't very difficult. And if you wanted to create a profile of a Christmas tree or of a football or of a basketball or whatever you wanted it to be, whatever shape you wanted that perimeter to be, you could do that. Start with your design, what you want that perimeter to be, create an offset, inward offset, and then use that inward offset to put your slots in to support the shelves. Oh, what we got here? Henrik, thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you very much. I had the pleasure of talking with Henrik for a little while this week. He's one of the ones we chatted with just a little while. He's over in Denmark. Thanks for the tips and the tricks. Your next challenge is to create a laser cut 3D tree bobble. 3D tree bobble. I've got, if you're not about just a 3D ornament, I got plenty of them on the website already. I got lots of those. So go over to Hobo with Wood and look for ornaments. I call them ornaments, not bubbles. Wow, first time I've had 5 in one live. Well, yay. That's good. I love seeing the 5s and 3s. And if there's anybody that's new in the stream, you don't recognize what they're doing here, they're indicating that they've learned 1 thing, 2 things. They've learned 5 things just in this stream today. And that's what I like Hobo with Wood Live to be about educating you on how to do these things. The videos I do during the week when I have time, I might do, just a quick, deep dive into light burner, on one tool, one thing, one tip, one trick. Or I might go like I did last week, where I did the 5-layered Highland cow, wherever it's got to. My cow, it's out of the pasture. Where did you go? But it was just a short 10-minute video, I think, just showing, hey, this is what we got done this week, and it's on the website. I don't even think I mentioned it was on the website. It was like, hey, look what I did for my patrons. But when we come in here, I want you guys to learn something. This is not about me. This is about sharing, and I love it when I learn, from you guys, and I do. Do reminders of what we forgot count? Do reminders of what we forgot count as a half? And Nepa says, great stream. I always learn something. Well, that's great. So anyway, so I think we're far enough down this little rabbit hole. You kind of get the gist of, or does anybody have any questions about anything that I've shown in this? Like I said, I want to cut it at 2 max. So I got 20 minutes. If anybody has any questions about what we've already discussed, there was some suggestions out there on how to do things that I would not have been on my radar. In fact, I've not yet done one of these with the taper, but Chris brought that up, and that's actually a pretty genius way to do that without a whole lot of extra work. So thank you for that. Yeah, be sure and like, share, and subscribe if you found this entertaining and informative, especially if you found it informative. No, don't be that guy that's like, you know what? I know where to go get the secret sauce. I'll watch Hobo and not tell anybody else about it. That way I'm the smartest and the sharpest knife in the drawer. Tell everybody. Share if they want to learn how to do this. This is the place to come and learn. Apparently the reason the names appear funny is a StreamYard setting. Not sure which one. Okay. There's always one of these. Absolutely. I can start from the top. Just as soon as I sign off, all you got to do is hit play to watch the replay, and you can watch it from the beginning. Start right from the top. No problem. Easy peasy. That's the easy answer. I can answer that question. And learn we do. Good. So tonight. Oh, no, Stephen. We're not going to do it again from the top live. Tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So it's almost 5 now. So in about 4 hours, I will be doing about 5 hours. I change hats, and it's Hobo with Wood chips. And my plan was, and it's already set up on the machine and ready to go. And I'm hoping that Chris or Jack can get with me tonight in the stream and help me overcome the roadblock here. Because I would love to get some of this carving done and do it during the live stream. It'll be loud, it'll be noisy. I can mute the mic. But it's not a big project. It's a simple project, and I'm using IDC Woodcraft's Badger for clearing. So it's going to clear this stuff out fast. It's not going to. I'm looking at doing another tray, another coin tray, and it's over there. I can't reach it, but I'm using. In fact, let's see here. Go here and swap. And check out this wood, boys and girls. That is a spalted hackberry. Spalted hackberry. And the wood grain is like that. Runs throughout the material. and it's, pretty impressive stuff. And I plan to do a coin tray or a collect all, but what I've done is painted it and put a mirror lacquer finish on it. Turn this light off. Come on. There we go. So it's a piano black lacquer finish on top of this spalted hackberry. And I plan to expose that beneath the black painted ebony finish with a pocket and then some engraving across the top with a monogram. But the problem I've got to overcome is that there's something funky going on in the post processor that I cannot get rid of. I can't find the setting. I can't find the post processor to change it, to edit it. I've got the code done. I've got everything set up. It frames and it's ready to go. I hit the start button and then it starts lifting itself up and it goes and hits its hard stop and then shuts everything down. And I've looked at the G code, and the G code has got some mysterious Z setting that's telling it to raise itself 20 millimeters above the surface. And I can't do that because this is 4/4 board, an inch thick, and there's only 39 millimeters of travel. So if I'm at 24 millimeters or 25 millimeters and it's wanting to go an additional 20, and I've only got 40 or 39 to total, ain't room for it. And it's not the safe clearance that's the issue. The safe clearance I've got set, and I haven't set at 5. And you can see it in the G code. It's there. Safe clearance is set there, but there's something funky in the post processor that's telling it to go to 20 and then come back to the 5. So I ain't figured out how to do that yet. And maybe the guys in the live stream tonight, we can walk through it and get through it. If Jack wants to join us tonight, Jack, you're there. You're welcome. I can send you the stream and you can help educate us and teach us. And if Chris is still awake, which I think the better question is, does Chris ever sleep? I'm beginning to think Chris is a vampire. He don't ever sleep. But Chris might even join us. I don't know. Change that in the notepad. But I've downloaded the G code and looked at it, and I can change it in the notepad. But then I don't know how to get it from the notepad back into Lightburn, and from the Lightburn then back over to here. I don't know how to do any of that. And then plus I don't understand why it's doing it to begin with. And there's a lot of limitations in Lightburn, and we all know that, beyond some of the stuff. But getting the feedback from dummies like me and from intelligent folks like Jack and Chris, Mill Mage will get to be to the point Lightburn is today eventually. He may be AI. No, because I've had him. He's actually been here on screen. Yeah, we're not using G Sender. Using Mill Mage. And like I said, I think it's a built-in safety that Mill Mage has in the post processor. And again, I don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm talking out the right side of my mouth here. But when I look at it, it's not anywhere in the project setup. But I think there's a safety that's built into the post processor that whenever Mill Mage gets the information, to make sure that no idiot hurts themselves, it just automatically goes here. And well, this little machine don't have room for what it's got built into it. And I can't disable it. I can't figure out how to get rid of it. So, but we'll talk about that tonight, 9 p.m. And if we can get that obstacle overcome, maybe, and Jack, I don't know if Ed's still in here or not, but Ed was having some issues with his, where we set it up, frame it, and get it all right. And it looks like everything looks good, and we send it to the job. Well, instead of it going out and going down 3 millimeters like it says it's going to, we talked about this. We mentioned possible dip switches. It's not dip switch. but it'll go down 6 or 8 or instead of 2. Something still having a problem with eds. We ain't got that figured out yet. So anyway, that's tonight. I'm gonna jump off here. I'm gonna go grab Dad. Hopefully he's ready to go eat. And Chris, we did the firmware issue with everything with his. We've done everything we could do. He's actually got Cubico involved with videos, and there have been people who have had issues with their Cubico, and they've sent out replacement Cubicos. In fact, the one that I gave away to Scott, they had to replace, and they did it without even second hesitation. They just sent him a new one. But they've looked at it and determined that they didn't feel like it was anything going on with Cubico, that it was something going on within Milmage. So I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll get it going. We'll all learn it together. So it is now 10 minutes to 5. So I got 4 hours and 10 minutes, and I'll be back here. So see y'all in a bit. And thanks everybody for coming and hanging out for Hobo with Wood Laserologist. And we'll see you later this evening.